So my last video was one about Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links and voice lines, and it was also a resounding success, at least by my standards. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. So then I thought I could maybe do a more personal video, perhaps one ranking characters based on those voice lines. Now I could, and probably will, rank them all at some point, but for now I figured I'd just start simple and only do the 7 main protagonists that we have right now. Let's get some ground rules established first. This is all my opinion and how I personally feel about the lines that each character did or did not receive. Second, I'm using Dark Side Dimensions Yugi instead of Yami Yugi, because if I didn't, then he would have been an easy pick for last place. But without further ado, let's get into the actual ranking.
And then Jack turned to Yusei and said, "Come over here and kick my engines into overdrive."
Yusei has one big, massive, catastrophic issue at play here. His main deck monsters. Everything else is basically on point. His extra deck, his back row, he's got all that down. But for some inexplicable reason, he only has lines for 6 main deck non-tuner monsters. And one of those 6 is Stardust Dragon Assault mode, so it might as well not even count. No Tuning Wear, no Max Warrior, and somehow no Stardust Xiaolong. Oh, and of those 5, one is Junk Karibo, which is meant to be used as a sort of hand trap, and another is Sonic Chick, who is pretty hard to get. Maybe I would have less of a problem with it if they actually went all in on making sure Yusei's archetypes were complete. But he doesn't even have lines for Stardust Phantom, Synchron Explorer, or any of the manga junk cards. At least I think. He probably has lines with 1 or 2, but I think that might just be the back row and not the monsters. So, good luck building a deck out of only cards Yusei has voice lines with, because it definitely isn't going to be a functional one. All in all, Yusei did pretty well with everything but his main deck non-tuners, which felt like a massive missed opportunity with how they were handled.
I won't tell you his name, but it rhymes with Schmaden Schmooky.
I get it. Elemental heroes are one of the biggest archetypes in the game. Sacrifices must be made. It's only natural, really. With that said, I feel like Jaden has the opposite problem, where his extra deck is really the problem here. You're gonna take the archetype known for the sheer number of fusions it has, and then only give him lines for like a dozen or so of them? Heck, there's more fusions that he doesn't have lines with than the ones that he does. I get that stuff like Steam Healer and Mariner were basically just one-off cards in the anime, but even then I feel like it's just a really odd choice to exclude them. While his main deck definitely fares better, it's not getting off scot-free here. He gets lines for Blaze Man, who wasn't even in the anime or manga, but not Ice Edge or Nosp, who were. Then he gets lines for non-archetypal stuff like Thunder King Ryo and Mott, but not his actual full archetype. And don't even get me started on the fact that he has lines with like 2 masked heroes as well as masked change, but not the rest of them for some reason. So yeah, Jaden is better than Yusei, but he has his own fair share of issues that really needed some working out.
How do you sleep at night, Yugioh? With pillows mostly.
While Yugioh has the same issues as both Jaden and Yusei, I feel like he at least struck a better balance. Sure, he's missing quite a few cards in both his extra and main deck, and with some noticeable exclusions such as Skullcrabat Joker, but I think overall, he got a good enough selection that mostly seems to cover the cards he used earlier on in the anime. Most of the cards he didn't get lines with were either manga or TCG exclusive, so I can sort of see why they didn't prioritize them too much. Yugioh has a ridiculous number of cards under his belt, just like basically everyone else on this list. And just like some of them, a lot of that is split between 3 separate archetypes, the Performapal, Odd Eyes, and Magicians. At the very least, I can accept that a fair number of the cards that he didn't get lines with were the most mid-Performapal cards ever, so it wasn't too much of a loss on that front.
You don't think a hot dog is a sandwich, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh.
It's a taco.
Remember how I was just talking about having a massive deck that's so big you can't expect lines for everything? Well, Yusaku finds himself in that boat as well. Although similar to Yusei, it's primarily more of an issue with the main deck instead of the extra deck. Like, there was absolutely no reason for Microcoder to not get a line, seeing as how it both directly supports code talkers and it appeared in the anime. He also didn't get lines for stuff like Code Generator, Radiator, or Exporter, which I can somewhat understand, since only the first one actually appeared in the anime. But again, all of these guys directly support his primary archetype, so I feel like they should have been included to some extent. But overall, I'd say he was handled pretty well. Most of his omissions were either TCG exclusives or cards he only played like once, so I get taking those out.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Yep, somehow Yugi got this high. Dark Side Dimensions Yugi, mind you. I can assure you that Yama Yugi would have easily been last had I used him instead. The only real complaint I have here is that he doesn't have lines with Palladium Oracle Mahad or Apprentice Illusion Magician, which I think was done because he isn't the Pharaoh, but even then I feel like he could have gotten lines for these and nobody would have batted an eye. I guess I could also complain about him not getting full-on voice lines for, say, all the Gaia support or Magnet Warriors, but I can sort of forgive that, seeing as this is meant to be Little Yugi and from the movie, where both of those things weren't really true parts of his deck, aside from Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight.
Wait, ain't that bad?
Bet you weren't expecting Yuga of all characters to end up this high. To be honest, I feel like he's partially carried by the fact that Seven's characters have smaller decks, and as a result, less to be cut. From what I saw, he seemed to have gotten basically every card he played in the anime that's been printed, with one or two exceptions, and even Jormungand and Ancient Lizard Warrior. Really, my only complaints are that he didn't get any lines for any of his friends' aces that he borrowed. Like, I get that he didn't own them, but Luke and Roman both have lines for the cards they borrowed, so I don't see why Yuga couldn't get the same treatment, especially since Yusei already did it with the Signer Dragons. He also didn't seem to get any lines with the cards he used in Go Rush, which is upsetting because that was where Arrow and Earth Sorcerer appeared in, so it's almost looking like his Go Rush variant will be a separate character entirely. But overall, aside from that, Yuga is pretty lit, as the kids would say.
Hang on, Ray. Did you say the B word?
Yes, I did. Does this shock you?
No, I'm cool.
Isn't it ironic that one of the more disliked protagonists was the one to get the best treatment? Yuma gets first place, and it isn't even close. He has lines for all the Onomats, all the Utopias, and basically every other card he played more than once. And because he's effectively two characters in one, he also got lines with all the ZW and ZS cards when he transforms. Yuma basically got it all, minus some of the more obscure one-off cards like Acorno or Dark Lawn. Yuma really is the complete package in terms of protagonist voice lines in this game, and it makes complete sense, seeing as he is the single character with the most voiced cards in the game. And that's the ranking. I'm looking forward to doing more Duel Links content in the future, but for now, this has been Emerald, going forth and not looking back.